so your power just went out. Maybe your neighbor's lights are dark too. You look outside and the street lights are off. Your first thought might be a storm, a blown transformer, maybe even a blackout hitting your area. But something feels different this time. Your car won't start, or it starts. But nothing with a digital display seems right. The silence is heavier than normal. Here's the thing. If an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, truly hits, you won't have time to be wondering if it was an EMP. And honestly, in the first few hours, it doesn't matter if it was a solar event, a high-altitude detonation, or something entirely different. What matters is what you do next. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not the sci-fi version of an EMP, not the tactical fantasy, just the practical steps that matter in those critical first hours and days should you find yourself in a world where the power grid goes dark and stays dark. Let's go. The first thing you need to do after a suspected EMP is simple, and it has nothing to do with grabbing a rifle or barricading your doors. Take a deep breath. I know that sounds almost too basic, but the decisions you make in that first hour will set the tone for everything that follows. Panic leads to mistakes. Mistakes in a situation like this can be costly. So, before you do anything else, just pause, assess, look around. What's working? What's not? Here's something most people don't realize. Most of your small electronics that weren't plugged into the wall will probably still work. Your phone might turn on, your flashlight, your portable radio, your battery-powered tools. If they were sitting on a shelf or in a drawer, disconnected from the grid, there's a good chance they survived. Things that were plugged in, however, are another story. Anything connected to the grid at the moment of the pulse is at a much higher risk. Your refrigerator, your TV, your computer. The longer the cord, the greater the exposure to the surge. But the key takeaway is this. Don't assume everything is fried. And don't assume everything is fine either. You need to actually check. Walk through your space calmly. Try to turn things on. See what responds and what doesn't. This gives you real information, not assumptions. Now, your phone might turn on, but that doesn't mean it's useful. If cell towers are knocked out, which is highly likely, your phone becomes a fancy flashlight and maybe an offline note-taking device. Keep it charged if you can, but don't waste battery trying to call people who can't receive your call. The same logic applies to your car. Many people believe that every vehicle made after a certain year will be permanently disabled by an EMP. This is not accurate. Tests have shown that the vast majority of vehicles, even modern ones, will experience some disruption, such as a stall, but will work again afterward. Some might need the key turned a few times. Some might light up with warning lights, but most will run. So, if your car stops, try restarting it before abandoning it by the side of the road. Now, if you're away from home when this happens, that's a more complicated situation, and we'll talk about that soon. But if you're at home, your first priority is to secure water. Here's why water matters so much in this scenario. Modern water systems run on electricity. The pumps that move water through the municipal system, the treatment plants that make it safe, even the pressure that pushes it through your pipes, all rely on the grid. When the grid goes down, that pressure starts to drop. You might have a few hours of flow, maybe less, depending on your area and how much water is in the system. After that, the taps run dry. So the very first physical action you should take is to fill every container you have with water. Bathtubs, pots, buckets, water bottles, anything that will hold liquid. Do it immediately. Don't wait to see if the power comes back on. If it does, great. You'll just have some extra water. If it doesn't, you've secured days of potable water that you wouldn't have otherwise. And here's a detail most people miss. Don't just think about drinking water. Think about hygiene. Flushing toilets, washing hands, cleaning wounds. Water does all of that. And when it's gone, these basic tasks become real problems very quickly. If you have a hot water heater, that's also a potential reservoir. Most hold 30 to 50 gallons. You can drain it from the valve at the bottom. Just remember to turn off the power to the unit first if it's electric to prevent damage when the water level drops. The point is, water is heavy and hard to transport. If you can capture it while it's still flowing through your house, you'll be ahead of almost everyone around you. One more thing. If you have a swimming pool, a hot tub, or a rain barrel system, don't ignore them. The water won't be potable without treatment, but it's still useful for sanitation, gardening, and other non-drinking needs. And with the correct filtration, it can become potable water in an emergency. Once you've secured water, turn your attention to food. And this is where your mindset really matters. If this is a true long-term grid failure, the food in your refrigerator and freezer is on borrowed time. Without power, a full freezer will maintain its temperature for about 48 hours if you keep the door closed. A half-full freezer might last 24 hours, a refrigerator about 4 hours before things start to get warm. So, you have a decision to make. If you have some way to keep your freezer cold, like a generator or a solar system that survived, use it. Otherwise, start thinking about how you're going to eat that food before it spoils. This isn't the time to be precious about your meal plan. If you have a chest freezer full of meat, you might need to start cooking it now before it goes bad. You can cook meat and then store it for longer than you would store raw meat without refrigeration. It's not ideal, but it extends your window of time. And here's the real shift in thinking. You need to transition from eating for pleasure to eating for energy. This means rationing. It means figuring out how much food you actually have, how many people you're feeding, and how long you need it to last. Most households have about 3 days' worth of food on hand at any given time. If you've been building up your pantry, you might have more. The key is to know exactly what you have. Take an inventory, write it down, count the cans, count the bags of rice, count the jars of peanut butter. Then do some basic math. How many calories per day does your family need to function? Divide what you have by that number. That's how long your food will last. Now, if that number is less than you'd like, don't panic. You just need to make adjustments. Smaller portions, prioritizing calorie-dense foods, avoiding waste. And one more thing, if cooking produces smells, and it will, be cautious about when and how you do it. In the first day or two, most people won't be desperate, but after a week or so, the smell of food being prepared can attract unwanted attention. We'll talk more about security later. One of the hardest parts of a grid-down scenario is the silence. No news, no updates, no way to know what's happening beyond your immediate surroundings. You might not know if it's a local or national event. You might not know if help is coming or if you're on your own. This is where a battery-powered or hand-crank AM/FM radio becomes invaluable. AM radio in particular travels long distances, and in a severe emergency, some stations are likely to still be broadcasting, especially government emergency stations. If you have a radio stashed away, now is the time to get it out and scan the frequencies. Listen for any official broadcasts. Even a single piece of information, like the scope of the event or the expected timeline for recovery, can help you make better decisions. If you don't have a radio, that's okay, but put it on your list for the future. It's one of those simple, inexpensive tools that becomes priceless in the right situation. Now, let's say you have family members who aren't with you. A spouse at work, kids at school, parents across town. How do you reconnect? This is something you really need to have planned out before an emergency happens. A rally point, a support meeting location, a predetermined plan for where you'll go and when. If you haven't done that already, don't beat yourself up, but recognize you're working with limited options now. If travel is possible, you may need to go search for your family. If it's not, you may need to stay where you are and trust they're doing the same. In general, unless there's a specific threat to your location, staying put is usually the best option. You have resources at home. You know the area. You're not burning calories and risking injury trying to get somewhere else. But every situation is different. Use your judgment. Now, let's talk about a scenario that worries a lot of people. You're at work, running errands, or visiting someone, and the EMP hits while you're away from home. First, the same rules apply. Stay calm, check what's working, try your car. If your car runs, great, start heading home. But be prepared for complications. Traffic lights will be out, intersections will be chaotic, gas stations won't be pumping. If you have a long drive ahead, you might not make it on a single tank. If your car doesn't run, or if traffic is completely gridlocked, you may need to walk. This is where a get-home bag makes a real difference. It's a small backpack you keep in your car with essentials. Water, a snack, comfortable shoes, a flashlight, maybe a paper map of your area. Nothing fancy, just enough to get you from point A to point B on foot if you need to. Most people can walk about 20 miles in a day if they're in reasonable shape and have decent footwear. More if they're in good shape, less if they're not. So, if you're 30 miles from home, you're looking at roughly a day and a half of walking. In the first day or two after an event like this, people will generally be confused but cooperative. You might find help along the way. Someone might offer you water or a place to rest. The community spirit tends to hold for a while, but the longer the situation lasts, the more that changes. So move with purpose. Don't linger. Get home while the window of relative safety is still open. And one more thing, know the route. Not just the highway route, but the back roads, the paths that avoid bottlenecks. In a major disruption, main roads can become impassable, either from traffic or from people who aren't moving with good intentions. Having alternate routes in your head gives you options. Okay, let's talk about something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Security. In the first few days of a grid-down event, most people will be in shock. They'll be waiting for the lights to come back on. They won't be threatening. But that changes as people realize help isn't coming, that stores are empty, that their kids are hungry. The social contract begins to unravel. It doesn't happen everywhere at once, and it doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens enough that you need to be prepared for it. So, what does this look like in practice? First, keep a low profile. Don't be the house with all the lights on. Don't be the one grilling steaks in the backyard while everyone else is eating cold beans. The goal is to not stand out. Blend into your surroundings. If your neighbors think you have more resources than they do, you become a target. Even people who wouldn't normally steal might justify it to themselves if they're desperate enough. Second, secure your entry points. This doesn't mean turning your home into a fortress. It means making sure your doors and windows lock properly. It means having a plan for who is watching while others sleep. It means being aware of who's coming and going on your street. If you have trusted neighbors, this is a good time to band together. A small group of people looking out for each other is far safer than a single family alone. You can take turns on watch. You can share information about what's happening in the area. There's strength in numbers, but be careful who you trust. Desperation changes people. Someone who was friendly last week might make different choices when their kids are hungry. Third, think about deterrence. You don't have to be aggressive. You just need to look like a harder target than the house next door. A visible dog. Motion-activated lights if you have battery power. Signs of occupancy. Sometimes the appearance of readiness is enough. And finally, have a plan for if things go very wrong. A place to retreat to. An escape route. This isn't about being paranoid. It's about having options. If your home becomes unsafe for any reason, fire, flood, violence, you need to know where you're going and how you'll get there. Okay. So, we've covered the first hours and days, water, food, communication, security. But what about the long term? Here's the honest truth. If an EMP takes down the power grid and it doesn't come back quickly, we're looking at a very different kind of life for a while. Months, potentially. In a worst-case scenario, years. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because your planning needs to extend beyond the first week. Let's talk about what that looks like. Rationing becomes a way of life. You're not just cutting portions. You're thinking about every calorie, where it comes from, how long your supply will last, what you can do to extend it. If you have any food growing skills, this becomes critical. Even a small garden can supplement your stored supplies. Seeds are worth their weight in gold in this scenario, not just for food, but for bartering. Speaking of bartering, the economy doesn't disappear. It just changes. Bartering becomes the norm. Skills become currency. If you can fix things, if you can provide medical aid, if you can teach, if you can do something useful, you have value. Think about what you can offer. Sanitation becomes a real challenge. Without running water, waste management falls on you. If you have a yard, cat holes, or a latrine trench can be your solution. If you're in an apartment, you're looking at improvised toilets and very careful waste disposal. This isn't glamorous, but ignoring it leads to disease, which can be as deadly as anything else. Community becomes essential. Individuals and small families can survive for a while, but true resilience comes from groups. People who can share the workload, people who can look out for each other, people with different skills who can fill different roles. If you haven't built those relationships before an emergency, it's harder to build them during one. But it's not impossible. And here's something easy to overlook. Mental health matters. A prolonged crisis wears people down. The uncertainty, the discomfort, the fear, the grief, it all adds up. Finding ways to keep morale up, whether it's through games, stories, music, or just conversation, it's not a luxury. It's a necessity. I want to mention something here. A lot of people have specifically asked me about EMPs. What actually stops working? What keeps going? What truly matters when modern systems fail? And I've finally put together a guide on this. And it's not written for the tactical crowd or the fear-based preppers. It's written for normal people who want to understand what they're actually facing. It covers which household systems fail first, which quietly keep working, how heat, water, food, and communication actually break down, and the simple preparations that don't require generators, bunkers, or expensive gear. No sci-fi scenarios, no panic, just clear thinking and practical steps. I'll put a link below if you want to check it out. Let me talk for a minute about where I see people going wrong when thinking about EMPs. The first mistake is assuming everything electronic will be destroyed. It won't be. Small, unplugged devices have a good chance of surviving. Your old laptop in the closet might be fine. Your portable radio might work. Don't write everything off before you actually test it. The second mistake is focusing too much on gear and not enough on skills and plans. A Faraday cage full of electronics doesn't help you if you don't know how to find water, cook without power, or navigate without GPS. Tools are only useful if you know how to use them and have a plan for when to use them. The third mistake is underestimating the timeline. People think in terms of days. If I can just get through the first 3 days, help will arrive. But a major EMP event could mean weeks or months without grid power. Your planning needs to factor in that possibility. The fourth mistake is going it alone. I get it. Some people like the idea of being self-reliant, not needing anyone. But the reality is, humans survive best in groups. One person can't guard their home 24/7. One person can't grow food, gather water, maintain security, and stay healthy all at the same time. Building a community, even a small one, dramatically increases your chances. The fifth mistake is waiting. Waiting for more information. Waiting for the situation to clarify. Waiting to see if things go back to normal. In the first few hours after an EMP, every minute you delay is a minute of water. You could have captured a mile closer to home. You could have made a decision you could have made while you still had options. Action beats hesitation. Even if you're not sure what's going on, act on what you do know. You can always adjust later. Let me paint a picture of what the first week might actually look like. Not the Hollywood version, but the realistic one. Day 1, confusion. Most people don't know what happened. They're trying their phones, trying their cars, looking out the window. Some cars work, some don't. Traffic lights out. There might be some minor accidents, some honking, some frustration. But mostly people are waiting, believing the power will come back on. Day 2, concern. The power is still out. No cell service, no internet. People start to realize this isn't a normal blackout. Stores are closed or only operating cash. Lines form. Tempers flare. But for the most part, it's still orderly. People are using what they have at home. Day 3, reality sets in. No official news, no restoration timeline. Refrigerators have been warm too long. Food is spoiling. Water pressure is dropping or gone completely. People start to get edgy. Some get angry. The first signs of desperation appear on the fringes. Days 4 to 7, the split. People who prepared are hunkering down, rationing, staying quiet. People who didn't prepare are scrambling. Some are knocking on doors asking for help. Some are more aggressive. The social fabric is stretching. Neighborhoods that pull together do better. Those that don't start to see problems. Beyond the first week, it depends. If there's any sign of recovery, any communication from authorities, any indication that help is coming, people will hang on. If there's silence, if the situation is clearly long-term, then the real challenges begin. And that's another conversation. Okay, let's bring this back to now. What can you do today to be ready if this happens? First, build a small water reserve. You don't need 1,000 gallons in your garage. A few cases of bottled water and a plan to fill your bathtub in an emergency already put you ahead of most people. Second, keep a 2-week supply of food that doesn't require refrigeration. Canned goods, dried beans, rice, peanut butter, oatmeal. Things that are non-perishable and that you'll actually eat. Rotate them into your regular meals so they don't spoil. Third, have a way to cook without electricity. A camping stove, a charcoal grill, even a small fire pit in your backyard. Just make sure you have fuel for it. Fourth, keep some cash on hand. In a grid-down situation, electronic payments don't work. Cash might, at least for a while. Fifth, Put together a simple get-home bag for your car. Water, a snack, comfortable walking shoes, a flashlight, a paper map. Nothing complicated. Sixth, have a family communication plan. Where will you meet if you can't reach each other by phone? How will you know everyone is safe? Seventh, know your neighbors. You don't have to become best friends. Just know who lives near you. In a crisis, those relationships matter. Eighth, learn some basic skills. How to filter water, how to safely start a fire, basic first aid, navigating with a compass. These aren't hard to learn, and they're the foundation of true preparedness. None of this is extreme. None of this requires a bunker or gear that costs a year's salary. It's just thoughtful preparation that fits into normal life. Here's what I want you to take away from this. An EMP, electromagnetic pulse, is a serious scenario. It's not impossible, and it's worth understanding, but it's also not the end of everything. People have survived major disruptions throughout history. They adapted, they rebuilt, and they did it without any of the advantages we have today. The key isn't to panic. The key is to prepare calmly and practically. Have a plan, have supplies, have skills, and have people you can rely on. If you do those things, you won't be helpless. You'll be ready. And that readiness isn't just about surviving the worst-case scenario. It's about having peace of mind now, knowing that if something happens, you've thought it through. You've taken steps. You won't be one of the people standing in a dark house wondering what to do next. That's what preparedness is really about. Not fear, but peace. If you want to dive deeper into the topic of EMP specifically, check out the guide I mentioned. There's a link below. And if this video was helpful, consider subscribing. I put out content like this regularly. Practical preparedness for everyday people. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.